Just a few things before we get started. We have your phones on mute, but you need to be sure to punch in on your phone the audio pin if you want to ask a question during the Q&A time. So when you dialed the number, it asked for an access code, and then there is a PIN number for audio that is on the site once you open up to GoToWebinar, and it should be in your right-hand corner up top. It'll say audio pin, and you'd have to punch that into your phone so that we can hear you for question time. And of course, you could feel free to type in your questions anytime during the webinar. We're going to be recording this webinar, so it will be posted within a couple of days. And a handout was emailed to everybody who RSVP'd. So if you do not have a handout, you need to type a note right now so we can see that and include your email address so that we can email you the handout. We're going to give it another minute to let people log on, so you'll have some time to do that. Oh, I believe Natalie put the handout on the website. So you can go to our website. So she did that today. I think we've doubled our participants in the last couple of minutes. We're going to give one more minute and get started here. Once again, your phones are on mute, but however, there is an audio pin that you need to punch into your phone so that you can ask questions during the Q&A time. You please feel free to type in or send in your questions on this webinar. We are recording. We just started the recording, and it will be posted on the website in a couple of days. And the handout was emailed yesterday to those who RSVP'd. Natalie placed that handout on the website, so you have to go to the Human Services tab, and it's placed there. So please, if you did not RSVP before yesterday, you would not have had this emailed to you. So it is there available for anybody that's joining us. Okay. I'm going to introduce our staff on this call. My name is Sandra Flores. I'm the Senior Program Officer for the Fresno Regional Foundation. Also on this call is Natalie Garcia, our other Program Officer for the Foundation, and Michelle Murphy, who is our Foundation Support Specialist, is also on this call. What we will cover today, and we're going to get going on the slides here. Yes, there's the introductions. And we get to the next slide. We're going to cover teen pregnancy prevention grant opportunities. We're going to cover human services grant opportunities. We are going to go through the new process for human services grant cycle, which is the LOI, the letter of interest. We're also going to go over eligibility and restrictions, and finally how to apply using our online grant application system, which we fondly refer to as Olga. I'm going to take just a couple of questions of a poll. First, I want to know if this is your first time applying to the Fresno Regional Foundation. So please, the poll, I believe, is launched, and we're going to give it a minute or two, less than a minute, to get everybody to reply if this is your first time, yes or no. And we're going to wait for Michelle to tell me when we have most of. All right, so it looks like about 82% that this is your first time applying to the foundation. That's a lot. No. Oh, 82 responded. I'm sorry. Okay, good. 25 for the first time around there. 82 of you responded. 82% responded. 25% are first time. Yep. Well, hopefully we'll show results here. Okay, so the next question is, how many are applying for teen pregnancy prevention? Did we get that question out? All right, let me know when we've got the majority responded. Okay, so what's the result? All right, great. And okay, let's go on to teen pregnancy prevention first. So important dates for teen pregnancy prevention. June 7th, the organization profile form is due at 5 p.m. The application is due June 21st, again, 5 p.m. cutoff date. And then if you are awarded a grant for teen pregnancy prevention, the final report or interim report, if it's a 2-year grant, will be August 29th, 2014 at 5 p.m. So let's go over dates for Human Services. So the new date that was recently posted onto our website for the letter of interest is due May 29th at 5 p.m. And if you are invited to submit a full application, the OPF and application have a same deadline date of June 21st at 5 p.m. Again, you will be submitting the OPF and application if you are invited based on your letter of interest. And then the final report for grantees for this grant cycle will be August 29th of 2014, next year at 5 p.m. Grant decisions will be announced August 31st. So let's go to the goals to fund. All right. This year, we have $380,000 for organizations serving Fresno, Tulare, Madera, Merced, and Kings County for teen pregnancy prevention. Mariposa is the only county not included. 3 types of grants will be funded in this grant cycle: pilot grants, planning grants, and grants for program, and those are the 2-year grants for $100,000. Pilot grants. These are grants. These grants are intended to supplement core teen pregnancy prevention interventions, and examples include innovative or culturally relevant approaches, parent education, community outreach, and education. The grant range is from $10,000 to $35,000. And the duration is 1 year. And if you have any further questions, you can either type them in while we are going through here, or we will take the questions Q&A at the end of this presentation. And of course, anytime after the webinar, you can contact the program staff with any additional questions that may come up. Teen pregnancy grants, the next one are the pilot grants, the planning grants. And these grants are intended to support organizations offering TPP programming by either purchasing the curriculum, the evidence-based curriculum, training the staff, identifying and partnering with clinical services, and then activities to support the implementation of programming. So these grants are geared to prepare for the 2-year $100,000 grants. The range is $10,000 to $35,000. The grant duration is also 1 year. All right, And let's go on to the final types of grants. These are program grants. These grants will support organizations for programming for teen pregnancy prevention programs that are comprehensive, medically accurate. They provide access to clinical services or referrals to clinical services. So the clinical services is key to the program grants for the 2-year grants. And these grant ranges from $50,000 to $100,000, and they are 2 years. All right, let's go over the eligibility criteria. Now, these are non-negotiables. These elements need to be in the proposals for the programs. These have to be medically accurate, comprehensive, and free from bias. They need to be gender appropriate, culturally and linguistically competent for target population, providing referrals to a family planning service provider as evidenced by a letter of cooperation with the service provider, evidence-based curriculum, and on the website there is a link to lists of what the committee sees as acceptable. If your curriculum is not on that list, you may still submit it. You should contact me via email with the curriculum, the type, and a summary of what it is, so I can run it by the committee for approval. So I think the priority here is to make sure that the curriculum that is being used or being proposed meets the threshold of evidence-based, and the committee understands that there are some evaluations in process with some curriculum, and they may be on some promising practice lists, and that may meet our threshold for the evidence-based. Let's go on to selection criteria. Now, we went over eligibility. These are non-negotiables. Here is selection criteria. These will cause a proposal to receive a higher ranking. So if the programs that have a high impact and focus on outcome, that will increase the strength of the proposal. They have a service provider referral system developed, so that some way that you're tracking if the youth are actually accessing services, that will cause the proposal to go to become stronger. If the proposal has a youth development focus, so there is some experience demonstrated in the proposal that you work with a youth population and you have done so effectively, that will strengthen your proposal, and of course defined outcomes well. A sustainability of programs, if you include information that gives the committee some clarity on how you propose to sustain the program, will strengthen the proposal. And partnering with other organizations doing related work or reinforcing your work will also cause the proposal to be stronger in the review process. Let's go on to the additional selection criteria. Again, these are not the eligibility, and they are not non-negotiables. We are trying to provide as much clarity to applicants about what would strengthen your proposal. So the knowledge of other organizations doing related work, the organizations with long-standing and deep knowledge of the community, that weighs very heavy in the review process. The long-term impact in the community change as it pertains to youth and their families. So we have listed that these are all from the committee. This is our 6th year of this grant making, and these have become sweet spots in this grant making initiative. So please go through them. They're all on the website very carefully, and the more you address these in your proposal, the stronger your proposal will be in the review process. I'm going to pause here for questions. See if any have been typed in. Let's see, Michelle, do you want to see if there's any questions that we had yet? Okay, so let's go on to human services. Oh, we're going to answer a question real quick.
Hi, this is Natalie. I just wanted to highlight a question that was typed in about the PowerPoint presentation, and this will be posted on the website by the end of the day today. If you go to our main web page, is FresnoRegFoundation.org, and then you click on the Grant Making tab. The Human Services should be the one that it defaults to and opens up, and you'll find it just near the top of the page.
Hi, this is Michelle. I have a question that's asking, can you describe comprehensive?
Comprehensive means that it is not abstinence only. That means you are teaching abstinence only, plus it would have to include all aspects of reproductive health. So comprehensive means inclusive, and if you are proposing an abstinence-only curriculum, this will not meet the threshold of comprehensive. I hope that answers your question.
Another question that just came in, is the LOI required for the TPP portion of the Human Services Initiative?
The LOI is only for Human Services. It is not for the teen pregnancy prevention. Okay, and that's it. So we're going to go on to Human Services now. Okay, our goals to fund. To support capacity building strategies for organizations serving children 0 to 8. The funding will focus on board governance, leadership development, and/or fiscal management. So Human Services has historically, in the last 5 years, focused on capacity building. And in 2008, when we rolled out this competitive grant-making program, the committee developed goals to fund for all the grant cycles at one time and then rolled them out together. We got to the end of 2008 and the economic decline. And as we were assessing 2008, preparing for 2009, in a very questionable economic climate, it didn't seem rational to develop goals to fund for a grant cycle that would be implemented and opened the following fall. So the board decided to take the goals to fund development quarter by quarter as each of these grant cycles opened up. So that has been a practice since 2009, since we posted our grant-making program for 2009 and since then. In 2011, the foundation started on a journey to open its 5th grant cycle, which we did in 2012, called High Impact. And the rigor and work that went into High Impact was to develop an issue-based grant-making program that was identified by Central Valley leaders, and also build a $20 million endowment to sustain this high impact grant-making, this issue-based grant-making, unfolded last year. So as we do at the end of each grant-making year, we assess what worked, what didn't. And it was our board that said, is there a way for our other competitive grant cycles, is there a way that we could use them to integrate what we learned during High Impact? And where we landed on High Impact last year was how we support families and children 0 to 8 for success by 3rd grade. The board decided to take the Human Services grant cycle and integrate or support that work. We are trying it. Is there a way the board wanted to examine to use this discretionary dollars, and these competitive grant cycles are primarily funded by the board's discretionary dollars, to reinforce the work that was done and identified in High Impact. And we are seeing the result of it in this grant cycle. That is why we have included this narrow focus of children 0 to 8. So those are the organizations that we are trying to attract so that we could reinforce with capacity building dollars. And again, if you have any questions while I'm talking, please type them in, and we're going to pause to take those questions. So, we are being consistent since 2008 in focusing on capacity building with human services, with this human services grant cycle. We are also integrating what we've learned based on our experience and the rigor that went into identifying the issue for high impact. And there's a little note there at the bottom saying that these funds can include the cost associated with contracting with outside expertise to support capacity building costs. And traditionally, I have said in this grant cycle, this is really the easiest grant cycle grant to write for, because you should be including your scope of work from your consultant. These dollars are not for programming. These dollars are for organizations to get the expertise they need in one of these 3 areas. So let's go on. All right. So here are the 2 items that will cause your proposal to rank higher. If your organization serves unincorporated communities, and if it's serving low-income communities and communities of color. Those are the only 2 selection criteria. Okay, so we should be preparing to show the LOI document in this slide. So I'm going to go over the LOI process. This is new for us, so we are going to rely on your feedback on this process. So FRF is using a 2-page letter of interest LOI to save organizations time and resources when applying for funding. The steps to submit the LOI. The first thing is to review the eligibility criteria and the 2013 Human Services Goals to Fund for information on FRF's funding restrictions and priorities. And we've gone over the eligibility criteria already and the selection criteria, and we're going to go over the restriction priorities. Those are also posted on the website. You're going to complete the LOI with a 12-point font and not to exceed 2 pages using the template provided on the FRF's grant-making page. And we're going to show you that document right now. And then you're going to submit your LOI by emailing it to program@FresnoReachFoundation.org. You want to title your email, Human Services LOI, your organization's name, and the deadline for the LOI is May 29th at 5 p.m. So while we take some questions, let's show the LOI template, please. So let's take the first question. Who's going to read it?
Okay, so a question that we have is how much of the 380 is for human services and the capacity building focus. We apologize for the lack of clarification. The 380 is available for teen pregnancy prevention, and there's 120,000 available for the human services grant cycle. That should be in your handout. It's not in the presentation, but it's in your handout, and it's on our website. So $120,000 for the capacity building portion of the human services grant cycle.
Okay, before we take the next question, we're going to go down. Here are the instructions I just went over. Let's go down the page, Michelle. We tried to make this as simple as possible. So here is the format. Again, this is posted on the website. It's a Word document, and here are the elements of the 2 pages to include information about your organization's mission, activities, operating budget, and how your organization is serving children 0 to 8, information about the region and population targeted, amount requested, project goals, and who will lead the work should be included in the LOI, and then a strong rationale for the proposed work. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. And we will take another question after we go over this next slide. Here we go. So organizations will be notified whether or not they will be invited to submit a full application by Monday, June 10th. Further guidance will be provided at that time. An organization profile form and application will be due by June 21st. This grant cycle will fund capacity building activities for organizations serving children 0 to 8. Now you can serve more than 0 to 8, that's fine, but you clearly have to identify in the LOI that you're serving 0 to 8. These grants will not fund direct programs, service programs. If consultants will be contracted, which we hope they will be, please be prepared to include the consultant and the scope of work in the full application. Now, if you happen to have the expertise in-house, then you certainly want to demonstrate in the LOI that you have the expertise in lieu of a consultant to do the work that you're proposing. All right, we'll take a question. Michelle, do you want to read the question, please?
All right, our first question is, can organizations apply for the Human Service Grant if their focus is not solely on children from 0 to 8?
The foundation is providing the clarity because the foundation wants to target organizations serving the population 0 to 8. Of course, the organization can serve more than 0 to 8, but those are the organizations that the foundation clearly wants to support. So these capacity building grants are for organizations serving a population of 0 to 8. Again, this is an effort to integrate what we've learned in high impact and how we can support families and children 0 to 8 for student success by the 3rd grade. So that is the priority, and that is why the public communication in this grant cycle reflects this 0 to 8 in the goals to fund. I hope that answers your question.
The second question is, describe capacity building as it relates to this grant-making opportunity. OPP?
The TPP? I'm sorry, you're going to have to restate the question.
Opportunity. So describe capacity building as it relates to this grant-making opportunity.
So capacity building, as we've identified, is in 3 areas. So capacity building for your board and governance. So that could be how securing a consultant to lead your board through a strategic plan, a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. When we say leadership development, that's executive leadership, any type of training and expertise that your organization needs in terms of leadership development for your staff. Or fiscal budget management, whether that is bringing in a consultant to help you. For example, the Nonprofit Finance Fund has done some work on how you link your mission to your money and using consultants to go through that process. Or maybe you need an auditor to come in, and we know those are costly. You could use this grant to help pay and offset the cost of an audit. Those are the types of capacity building activities that we want to support for organizations focused on a 0 to 8 population. Okay, we're going to go on to the next slide, and we'll take questions after let's get through the eligibility criteria and the region. So we did some questions right now. Let's go through eligibility. All right. We give grants to 501c3 organizations, government agencies, including cities and counties as our examples, community groups with fiscal agents. That means if you're a PTA club and you're not a 501c3, you're not a government agency, you could apply to a grant from us, but you would have to partner with the 501c3 because they would be the ones that we could give the grant to, and they would manage the grant on your behalf of the community group. We can give a grant to a public agency. We can give a grant to an educational institution. Let's go on to the region. Now for human services, these grants cover all 6 counties: Merced, Mariposa, Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare. It was only teen pregnancy that eliminated Mariposa, but teen pregnancy will cover 5 counties. All of these: Merced, Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare. And human services will cover all 6. And this means even if your organization is not in one of these counties, but you're serving in these counties, that would be fine. So you don't have to be located in the counties, but your programming has to be in the region. Okay, let's go on to organizational health measured by. We review 990s, and so we're taking nothing later than 2011 this year. We review the most recent board-reviewed internal financial statements, and they should include assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenses. We review external audits only if the receipts are more than $500,000. If you are under $500,000, then we don't want an external, we're not requiring an external audit. We do review operational budget for organizations, and we do require a minimum of five board members with diverse experiences and backgrounds for organizations. Let's go over the restrictions. All right, we will not consider a grant request for the following. We will not fund previously incurred expenses. We won't fund fundraising by one agency on behalf of another. We will not fund endowments. We will not fund institutions limiting their services to individuals of a single religious sect or denomination, and we will not give a grant to individuals. Let's go over the reporting requirements, and then we're going to take a few additional questions. So the reporting requirements. We strongly encourage you to review the reporting requirements before applying. On the website, when you log into Olga, you will be able to get into the reports and open up a blank report like you're filling it out so you could see the type of data we were requesting. We ask that you share any media coverage resulting from the grant should you be awarded. And we always like to be mindful of grantees, that failure to submit a final report may disqualify the grantee from future funding requests. So please take time to review the final report. It is an important piece of document for the foundation in terms of demonstrating our impact with the discretionary dollars that the foundation has. So I'm going to take some questions before we go on to actually how to apply, and that is very concise because I only go over 5 key things in each of the OPF and the application. So we will take some questions. So Michelle, will you ask the first question?
All right, the first question is, can an organization submit to both TPP and Human Services?
Yes. Those pots of money are reviewed by 2 different committees, and they have 2 different funding sources, so yes. Do we have any others, Michelle?
Yes. Our next question is regarding the LOI. How much information about the consultant and scope of work is needed in the LOI?
We're going to leave that up to you. We've given you the requirements of what you need in the LOI, but you know, you want to demonstrate. I don't think it'll take much to say you have an expert in what exactly they'll be doing in the time frame they'll be doing it. That could be given in greater detail should you be invited to apply and submit a full application. Okay, so let's go over how to apply using our online grant application system. So if you go to our FRF home website, okay, here we go. Let's go to the home page. And you'll see the grant making tab up top there. And then you can see the Olga login right up top of that. There you go. So for those of you who've never applied to us, you're not going to have a username and password. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to have to request an account. Click that button. And just to make sure that your organization hasn't applied to us, because we require one organization profile form per organization, check the tax identification number. And there, go ahead, Michelle, click the check existing ITN. Now you could type in the name of the organization, which I would suggest. Sometimes you don't have the TIN number. And do the search. And as you can see, it comes up. That means this organization has applied to us. That means then you simply don't have the username and password. So you're going to go in to, let's get up. So you're going to go in and we'll show you where to go to request one. There we go, forgot password. And request it. This will set you on the path to resetting your password. And if you don't know the email address to get the password, then you're going to give Michelle an email notification, and we will just reset everything for you. Now, let's say you haven't applied, and that is you're going to request the account, fill out that information, and you will have a username and password. You have it. Now we're going to sign in. There we go. You'll get the welcome page, and you're going to go to My OPF Grants. So we want you to be very mindful that you use Google Chrome or Firefox when you are on Olga. Internet Explorer does not work very well with Olga. So Google Chrome or Firefox. And here are the 5 things that we're going to start about OPF. The first one is 1 OPF per organization. Okay, and this is updated once per calendar year. It's not a year from the time that you created it or updated it. Beginning January 1 through December 31st, a calendar year, this document needs to be updated. So if you had one and you're returning, here it is. For those of you that are new, you won't have anything here, so you're going to create one. There you go. So we're going to proceed as if we already have one in, because the fields are the same for both. So let's go into Edit. Okay. All right. We went over once a calendar year. We went over, the first thing we're going to go over here is up top, is the timer. This is like buying a ticket on for a concert. You have a limited amount of time before your information is lost, and we have this timer up top so that you could refresh your page or save your information at the bottom, and we will go to that field here shortly. So the timer. We want to go down to attachments. This is straightforward information, okay? There's nothing complicated or tricky about it. It's straightforward. You're going to get down to attachments. Let's stop here. And how do I name attachments? Let's go there. We've given you examples. No symbols when you're labeling the attachments. This is the primary hiccup we have, because the symbols, ampersands, asterisks, whatever it is, Olga reads it as language, and we are unable to open the documents to review them, and it delays the processing of the OPF. So no symbols, no spaces in your attachments. That's the next one. Let's go down to return or save for editing. So this is where you will be refreshing your page to beat that timer, and as you notice, the timer is still up top there. So while you're working on this document, you will be in the return for editing mode, and you keep it there, that radio button clicked, filled, and then you hit the save button. Once you're ready to submit, you would do the submit to FRF. But either way, this is the confirmation page, the first page to say that your information was saved. Okay? So let's log back into MyOPF, to that field right here, MyOPF grant applications, Michelle. Now you've done your work and you want to see if everything's there. You don't go back into edit, you go back into view. This is the next, this is the question that we get the most, next to the I lost my information. We didn't save it in time. You go down into view, not in edit, and go down to your attached document so we could see if everything's there. Now if you can open it, we can open it. And all that work, everything you've done, and there it is. There's a 990 that was just attached. So that's good. So we make the distinction between edit and view. And I believe that is everything for the OPF. Once a year, calendar year, no symbols in the file attachments, return for editing or submit. Remember, during the deadline, you want us to know that it is ready for submit, so you got to click the radio button for submit to FRF. And you'll keep an eye on the timer, and you will go into view mode just to make certain that everything that you populated is there and attached. Let's go on to the application. So now we're in Human Services. You go below the OPF and you'll see there is a tab for each of our grant cycles. And we're in Human Services, you're going to do that, and there's no, if you have an application there because you've applied to us in the past, do not mess with the application. You're going to go to apply. Everybody will go to apply for this grant cycle. So let's go to the application. And I'm going to make a note, because of this LOI process, nobody will be able to work in the applications until June 10th. But however, just like you clicked, Michelle just demonstrated, you clicked the apply, you could open it once, copy everything on here onto a Word document, which we suggest anyway, and work off of the Word document so you capture all the questions. Okay? But the application will be disabled because we are in this LOI process. All right, so here's the first thing we're going to go over about the application. The grant amount requested. That field should be populated with a number that is within the range, and that's on top, Michelle. Let's go up top. All right, right here, we go down a little bit, right here, amount requested. So please populate an amount that is within the range. And for Human Services, the $120,000, the range was listed, 10 to 25. Excuse me, 5 to 25, I believe. And for teen pregnancy prevention, it's either going to be 10 to 35 or 50,000 or 100,000. So we've got a 10 to 35,000 range for the planning and pilot grants. And for the program grants, it's either going to be 50,000 or 100,000. So that's the first thing to take note of. The second is, if you're applying for $10,000 or more, we require you to fill out an additional narrative. So these questions have word limits. So let's show them where the attachment for the $10,000 is. So $10,000 triggers the additional narrative document, and here it is. That is the template. It's a Word document, and there are additional questions for you. Okay, let's go to the budget attachment. So the applications only have a maximum of 2 attached documents, and 1 if you only apply for under $10,000. So the budget is here. It's an Excel document, and this is straightforward. Go to the very top, Michelle, so they could see the label of the names. Bring it down. Yeah, there you go. We should have a place to put the name and the amount on the top of that template. There you go. So the organization name up top, the amount requested here, and you tell us what you need for this project. Now, if you are applying for $10,000 or more, you're going to be required to do the second tab on this document. And Michelle, will you open that for them, please? $10,000 or more triggers the second tab, and this is a concise financial history of your organization. So 2 tabs if applying for $10,000 or more. All right. Also, in these attachments, when you're labeling them, no symbols, no ampersands. It will prevent us from opening the document and reviewing it. And again, as if, let's go back to the document now, Michelle. No, to the actual template, application template. We can close all these, yeah. So let's go down to the save and return for editing. And this is the same as the OPF. While you're working on it, you want to hit that radio button for return for editing. But once it's complete, if you want us to review it, once the deadline, you want to have it in the submit to FRF mode so you can submit it before the deadline. And that will trigger us to review it, and you hit the save button. And like in the OPF, so let's save this. Once you save it, it'll tell you it needs a project name, and I think there's some things that will require you to do to populate before you close it. But like the OPF, you can go into view mode of the document once it's in there, so that you could see the things are edited. So let's see, do we have anything in this test to open this application? There you go. Oh, no documents. We didn't attach anything. So, but you want to go into view mode to make sure what you populated is there and what you attached is there. And don't go into edit, because that is for working in the document. Okay, so again, I'm going to do some final notes about the final report, review the reporting requirements. Let's go to that tab, Michelle. Show them where the final reports are. Go up top. You're going to go to My Grant Reports, Funded Grants. You could go into Submit a Report. Go into, let's see, there you go. And those are the questions for the final report. Please take a look at them. Take a look at the data we're asking in a final report, because if you're not collecting that data, you need to think about how you're going to collect it for the particular project that you're working on. Okay. So I'm going to go over submission of OPF and application, which is the next slide on the PowerPoint, Michelle. There we go. All right, FRF has 3 layers to ensure that OPF and applications are successfully submitted. The web page confirmation that immediately you got when we hit the save button. There is also the automated email sent to the applicants once an item is submitted, and that is going to the email that is tied to your username and login, okay? And then the final is an email approval sent by the program staff. Now, that's not going to come in 24 hours or 48 hours. That's going to come the following week. So we have a deadline of the 21st. So the following week, we will be processing OPFs and applications in order of submission, okay, for human services. Of course, we have an earlier date for OPFs for TPP, but for human services, the following week of the deadline, we will be processing in the order of submission. So you will get that at a later date. When one of these layers is missing, it is an indication that the item was not successfully submitted. All right. Olga, final reminders. Use Firefox or Google Chrome. Request an amount within the grant range. Please do not use symbols in your file attachments when you're labeling them. Be mindful of the status, the return for editing or the submit to FRF. One of those radio buttons you want, if you're submitting it, you want it in the submit to FRF mode for us to review it and accept it. The edit mode is to work on in an OPF, and the view mode is to check if an attachment or the information that you've populated is in the, and we could read it, it's not cut off. You want to go into view mode to review those things. All right, we're getting ready for questions, if there are any questions. So go ahead, Michelle, let's go over the first question.
The first question is, when is the OPF due for this grant cycle for the Human Services?
Human Services, it's due on the 21st with the application because you would have gotten an invitation based on the LOI, and we are processing those at the same time. For TPP, the date for the OPF is June 7th.
All right, the next question is, will the number of TPP and Human Service grants awarded be dependent on the amount each agency requests?
So the number of grants awarded will be based on, we only have $120,000 for Human Services, so depending on what is submitted, we've given you the grant range, so we're not saying we're only giving 5 grants away or awarding 5 grants. No, we don't have a set number. We have a set amount, and based on what applicants submit within the grant ranges will be the total amount that we have will determine the number of grants. I hope that answers your question.
As a follow-up to that, would agencies typically apply for full or partial grant awards?
You should expect to apply for full grant awards. I mean, the committee reviews the budget to see if it aligns with the work. So you certainly don't want to inflate your budget just to see if they'll reduce it. That is not a good strategy. The strategy should be a very clear, compelling proposal and a budget that supports what the proposal narrative provides. That should be the strategy. You tell us what you need.
All right, next question is, do you make samples available of grants that have every requirement right for Human Services and TPP?
Well, we have posted last year's grantees. We don't post the proposals. I mean, it's a little proprietary. I do, though, for TPP on the resource page, by permission of the organizations, I think those are 2008 grants, have provided their proposals. And our questions, I don't think our questions for those grant applications have changed. The only thing that has changed is the public communication to potential applicants, so we're giving you clarity. But those grant applications posted on the TPP resource page are examples of 2 grantees that had, everything that we were looking for in the 2-year grant, not in the pilot or planning grants. And we have no examples for Human Services, no examples of proposals, only the projects names of the grantees listed.
All right, the next question, will Fresno Regional Foundation partially fund a grant?
If it seems like it will not undermine the proposal, so let's say you're asking for $20,000 and you're hiring a part-time person, if we reduce that based on the information you gave us, the committee takes that into consideration. They will say they probably won't be able to hire somebody, so we either have enough money to fund it or we don't. But if it's a matter for programming that you're going to do, let's say 10 sessions with a consultant, and it's going to cost this amount, they may ask, how will it impact to do 5 sessions? Will you be getting, and only maybe in one area, maybe they focus on governance and not leadership development or something. They do weigh that out, and they have modified budgets, but we won't do so until we've had a conversation with the organization to see if that is something they can accommodate.
And then for some clarifications on the applications, is the TPP application the same as the Human Services one?
The questions are the same, yes. The questions don't vary for the issue. The questions are the same. The projects are going to be different. The only added thing for teen pregnancy is the letter of support for clinical services if you're applying for the program, the $50,000 to $100,000. That's a requirement.
And can an organization only apply for the OPF by invitation?
For human services, yes. We are not requiring, again, as I mentioned, we're trying to make the LOI process simple. And for human services, we don't see that it would simplify this for you as applicants if you have to go through the rigor of an OPF, filling out the OPF, submitting an LOI, and then not getting invited to the application. So for human services only, the 2-page LOI needs to be submitted to the program staff. If you are invited, then you will fill out the OPF and application, which is why we gave it the same date.
If your organization has also submitted an OPF for 2013 and it has been approved, I assume it does not need to be resubmitted.
That's correct. We said the OPF needs to be updated once per calendar year. So if there is an approval on your OPF now that says, because the program staff would have dated it, and it says, accepted for 2013, then it's good to go for this year. You don't need to worry about updating the OPF. Well, that seems to be the end of our questions. That would be the end of our webinar. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to email program@FresnoRegFoundation.org, and we will address them as they come in. I thank you for your time. This webinar will be posted in a few days. The handout is currently on the website, and we look forward to reading LOIs and proposals. Hope you all stay well and have a good afternoon. Thanks.